Bienvenidas y bienvenidos. Este es Akasha Hub, una comunidad en un espacio independiente autofinanciado de mentes inquietas, curiosas, profesionales que quieren cambiar el mundo, quieren cambiar el status quo y están aquí para proponer respuestas, no solo quejas, sino respuestas a cómo está viendo la sociedad hoy en día. Sin más, creo que voy a pasar la palabra directamente a Kris, que nos va a introducir el tema de hoy. Un aplauso para Kris.
Gracias. Thank you, Akasha Hub, for hosting this event. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kris De Decker, and I'm the founder of Low-Tech Magazine, and you may have heard about the website in recent years because it's solar-powered. That's mainly why people know it these days. And it goes offline when it's bad weather. And it kind of summarizes the whole philosophy of Low-Tech Magazine in the sense that Low-Tech Magazine is a journalistic medium that is critical about technological progress. And rather than following the newest innovations, what we do is look to the past for inspiration. And the website is actually, obviously, it has high-tech components, but it's operated as if it's an old-fashioned sailboat or windmill in the sense that it depends on the weather. But I'm not going to talk so much about the website as it is now, but how it was. And that's the next slide. So this is a Low-Tech Magazine in 2007. And so I went to the Internet Archive, and this is one of the earliest screenshots I could find in the Wayback Machine. So it's from December 2008. And this website was built on a blog platform called Typepad. So it was a blog, and I was a blogger, and I was part of the blogosphere. And it's been years since I introduced myself being a blogger. I got kind of lost that people don't call themselves bloggers anymore. But actually, after tonight, I may introduce myself again as a blogger. And the Low-Tech Magazine that you saw in 2008 was built in a time before social media. So it was the internet that was. It's no longer the internet that is. And the idea for this event came actually from another blog. It's called From Jason. And Jason, I assume it's written by a guy called Jason, but we never know for sure. Jason wrote an article asking where have all the websites gone. And in it, he takes us back to 2009, to the period before the social media, the period when I founded Low-Tech Magazine. Jason tells us that there is good news and there is bad news. And the good news is that the websites have not disappeared. They are still there. The problem is that we cannot find them anymore. And the point that Jason makes is that why can't we find them anymore is that humans no longer curate the internet. So we have outsourced the process of discovery to corporate algorithms. And so what does that mean? Well, nowadays when you get on the internet, you usually go to social media, and the content that is presented to you is selected by an algorithm. And that algorithm is programmed by companies who want to make money, who want to get your data and so on. And these algorithms are not made to make you smarter. On the contrary, they are made to keep you scrolling. So every platform, their aim is basically to keep you on their platform for as long as possible. And then you get things like this. Whenever, in my case, when somebody sends me a YouTube movie and I watch it, and then that movie can be interesting, but then 3 hours later, that is what I see. And I somehow end up always watching the most dangerous roads in the world, the plane crashes, there's a car crashes, and so on. But I would never by myself go like, okay, let's watch some 3 hours of the most dangerous roads in the world. There's no way I would do that. So it's the algorithm pushing me there. And after 2 or 3 hours, I'm totally wasted, and I'm not really exactly happier. On the contrary, I feel like, what did I do with my time? I'm wasting my time. So how did it work before? There's some people here who obviously too young to have known the internet before social media, so they may wonder like, well, yeah, how else would you do it? But there was actually another system, the human curated system, that worked very well. And it had some elements that were really important. And the first is a concept called link love. And link love is basically, there's a beautiful demonstration here in Jason's blog post, because he says that the websites are still there, and he says they're amazing even, and he puts Low-Tech magazine there. And what happens is that when I look at my visitor statistics, I suddenly see all this traffic coming from a blog called From Jason, and I don't know the guy. So I go have a look, and what usually happens, if somebody links to you, they are kind of interested in similar things than you are. And so I found this blog post, and then I posted it myself on my website, and then I made a whole event about it. So I kind of returned the link love. Another component of the early internet was the block roll. And a block roll is basically a collection of links to sites that you like to read, that you think your readers would like. And you usually put it in the site column of your blog. And this is another website I run, and it still has a block roll. It hasn't been updated for years, but so I went through all the blogs, like half of them have disappeared, obviously. And then the third part was the RSS reader. And this is not mine because I stopped using it, unfortunately. But this is the example of a RSS reader. What it does, basically, how it worked, and some people may still use it, they still exist, is that you put all these blogs that you want to follow, you put them in your RSS reader, and every time that there is an update on one of these blogs, you get noted of the new blog post. So that means you don't have to, every morning, you don't have to go through your whole blog roll to see if somebody published something new. With these three elements, you can actually have a communication network that can do everything that a social media platform does, with the exception that there's no platform, no corporation in between. It's just between people. So in the old system, like we could, for example, rather than making a profile, every one of us on a social media platform, if each of us would make their own blog, put a blog roll of the people they are following, or they want to follow, or they want to get in contact with. Then you put them all in your RSS reader. You see the updates. If there's an update that you like especially and you want to share it, you make your own blog post about it, and you link back to the source that you want your followers to read. So essentially, you can do everything that social media does. You can do it with this blogosphere idea that we had before. So until about 2012, 2013, almost all the traffic on Low-Tech magazine came from human curated blogs. And like I said, I went through my blog roll and to see which ones were still alive, and some are still alive. Like this is one, Ran Prieur. He's been around longer than I am, actually. And it's also a good example because it's the typical personal blog. The guy, when I started following him, he wrote about technology, energy, stuff like that. That completely changed. He's now writing about LSD mainly, but I'm kind of like, okay, he's a good writer, he's a funny writer, and we exchanged a lot of link love among each other. This is another example. So blogs were not all personal products. So you also had community blogs, and this is one of the ones that have survived. So I think it's 20 years old by now, Arts and Letters Daily. It's just a curated blog of interesting content on other sites. Kotke is another one who survived 25 years. They're even advertising this as a kind of look how long we've been here. So again, all this guy does basically is surfing the internet, looking for interesting stuff, and then posting it on his blog. And then there's Slashdot. So you may wonder, like, okay, like this blogosphere, cool, but how do you get like the tens of thousands of visitors that you can get through social media if a post goes viral? Well, you go to Slashdot, for example. If you see the date, December 2007, this is like more or less 1 month after I started the English low-tech magazine. And some Morphovar kind of published this on the Slashdot community blog. And I lost, I don't know exactly how many, but it was like 40,000, 50,000 visitors in one day that came to the blog. And it's really kind of, it was the kickstart of Low Tech magazine. After that, like, it was 1 month old and it already had a lot of traffic. Morphovar was me. I put my own post there, which is not really how it works, but somehow you have to make a start if you start a new medium. And of course, you can't do this forever, but I hope nobody of Slashdot is here. Next post, the Oil Drum was another community blog that was very important in those days, which sent a lot of traffic. But that worked in a different way, and that's the kind of the concept of the guest post. So rather than posting an article on your own blog, you could be asked by one of these community blogs to actually republish something on their blog. And again, that brought a lot of traffic. It makes you, lots of people get to know you, and you get like, I don't know, there were like 500 comments on this article, which was obviously not the case on my own blog. This was kind of very short, the internet, how it was before social media. But then around 2010, I mean, there was not an abrupt change between the old and the new internet, obviously, but around 2010, 11, it became more and more, the traffic from Low Tech magazine came more and more from social media. And one of the big traffic sources was Facebook. And what you do then, of course, if you see like, okay, traffic is now coming from those sites, you start to build up a following there. And so this, I made this screenshot yesterday. So I got to 15,000 followers. And then on Twitter, I got like, I don't know, 13,000. And before that, there was actually Stumble Upon. And then you have Instagram more recently and so on. So content producers like me, what they do, they spend a lot of effort in building a following on the social media. But then around 2017, Facebook decided that I can only reach my followers if I pay Facebook. And so what they actually did is they sell their followers back to me. So I spent all this effort in creating these 15,000 followers. And now, so as a test, I put this event in front of the eyes of my 15,000 followers, and I got 2 likes. So that's all. So what this means is like, yeah, Facebook just maybe shows it to 10 people. And if I want to show it to the rest, there's the button, boost the event. And if I want to reach my 15,000 followers, it cost me around €500 per post. So obviously, I'm not going to do that. And so, I'm basically back to where I am. I have a blog and I have a newsletter, and you will have to look very hard on my website to find a link to my social media, because I don't want you to go there. Because I know that by now that whenever I build a following on a social media platform, it's just temporary. And so the only effort, what I try to do is make people subscribe to my newsletter, my email newsletter, because I own that. Nobody can take it away from me. Next one. And then I have the luck that I have a platform. So I kind of, throughout these years, like 17 years of blogging, I kind of had to move from one social media platform to another, but my blog was always the foundation. The problem is that many content producers these days don't even bother to have their own blog, and they build their content straight on the platform. And this is an example. Rat of Gnon is like an account on Twitter that I like a lot. And so this guy has no website, he has nothing, he just has his Twitter account. And I know other people who do it on Facebook, for instance, there's many people doing it on Instagram. Well, one day, Twitter is gonna change the rules. Maybe they do the same as Facebook, like, hey, Mr. Rat of Gnon, you still want to reach your 150,000 followers? You can pay. And what you can do then? Nothing. You lose everything. You lose your followers. You cannot. It's not like an email newsletter. You cannot just download your followers and take them to another social platform or your newsletter. You just lost everything that you invested 10 years of time in. So these platforms, these social media platforms are, in my view, bad for those who visit, like the content consumers, because you all get the same crap. So you get, basically, we all see the same content also. In the early days, like the 2000s, everyone was looking at very different things on the internet, and now we all see the same stuff, like the things that go viral, the For You news feed. And but for content producers, it's also very tricky in the sense that it's very hard to build a reliable business on top of a platform that can change the rules any moment. And so this is a bit of a short introduction of this kind of make people be aware that there was a completely different internet before social media in the 2000s. And that we are now in a totally different era. And there's two people more that come to have a talk. It's Tim and Roel, and they are more kind of going deeper into this, the possibilities of what we could do. Because of course, I'm just in the tradition of Low Tech magazine. I'm like, if I want to find a solution for something, I just go look to the past and I say like, look, the solution is there, we just have to go back. But probably there are ways to kind of go forward rather than go back, but in a different way. So I don't know who wants to take the mic now, Roel? So I give the word to Roel Roscam Abbing. He's a researcher into alternative platforms. He also worked on the solar-powered website. Thank you.
So so the whole idea of this evening is to look at which ideas from the past internet can inform the internet of tomorrow, looking specifically at kind of the issues that we have with the current platforms, both as end users or as professional users. And I'm going to talk a bit about a concept which is called online federation, and this is also the subject of my PhD research in interaction design. So I'm normally a doctoral student in Malmö, and these months I'm now in doing an exchange here at the WOC in Barcelona, where people are doing very interesting work on alternative platforms. And so, as I said, in my doctoral research, I look at online federation as an old idea how online systems should work, and that I think would be an interesting provocation for the discussion for later. But first, to make the point, I need to expand a bit more on. So to make the point, I need to share some more background on basically what Kris was explaining on the problematics of the platforms. And why they have becoming worse, and why this creates an opportunity, I would argue, for old ideas to change the way we do things in the future. And so one particular theory, which I think is rather compelling, is a theory by Canadian sci-fi writer and blogger Cory Doctorow, which he calls enshittification. And the idea is behind it is that platforms as intermediaries between different parties, for example, writers and their audience, because let's not forget Blogspot and WordPress are also, at the end of the day, platforms. They're often useful and necessary. But in most contemporary online platforms, due to the desire of their parent companies to earn ever more money, a particular dynamic has set in, which Cory Doctorow calls enshittification. And to quote him, he says, it's a three-stage process. First, platforms are good for their users. Then they abuse their users to make things better for their business customers. And finally, they abuse their business customers to claw back all the value, so that means all the revenue that's being created, for themselves. And then they die. So the basic premise is that platforms subsidize different classes of users. first end users, and these are people like you and me, are enticed with cool features, such as being able to find all your high school friends on one social network, being able to store extremely large amounts of data for free, giving you a massive audience to publish to, sharing your account with friends and family so they also can watch the same series as you. All these kinds of benefits that we find in platforms are actually being subsidized. Once end users are convinced about the platform, so that means once we're enticed into the Facebooks and the Netflixes and the Google search and whatnot, they start to subsidize features for business users, such as, for example, Kris or Tim, who will speak later. In this process, most often, according to Doctorow, the platform becomes worse for the end users. For instance, what they might do is start collecting a lot of data on end users so that they're able to accurately target them with advertisement. And the platform subsidizes this behavior by making those advertisements very effective or cheap, or by paying the people that have those advertisements on their websites, paying them a lot of money for every click they get. So by subsidizing this becomes interesting to these business users, and convincing them to stay there as well. And so in order to do these kinds of things, they necessarily need to make things worse for users, the end users, such as, for example, showing more advertisements in the timeline. So sponsored content rather than the original things you signed up to see. So that's the kind of algorithmic curation that Kris was talking about. And once you have the business users convinced and they have become dependent, you can stop subsidizing those and start actually making a lot of money. For business users, it means that rather than having a system where you can reach everyone that you follow, you require increasing amounts of advertising spent to reach your actual followers, like Kris showed us. Also, a lot of these business users, they cannot move away because all the end users are on this platform. So you're kind of holding each other hostage, as he calls it. Effectively, slowly, the platform becomes worse for all groups until some people start to leave, then more start to leave, and then eventually the platform kind of collapses on itself. This is a slow process, but it's happening nonetheless. However, where does that leave you with all your followers, with all your creative work, with your audience, and these kinds of things? At the core of this process is the financing model for platforms, where venture capital investment needs extremely high returns, creating a lot of pressures for this process. This pressure in return creates very large platforms that everyone is on. Because everyone is on it, no one can leave, and these platforms become powerful enough to change the rule of the games, what it means to be on those platforms. And eventually, in a period like now, when platforms actually need to start making real money rather than subsidizing everything, you see that a lot of changes are happening quickly. You can no longer share your Netflix password or your Netflix account with your neighbors. Google is saying you cannot store as much free stuff anymore. So all these platforms are kind of slowly rolling down that offer. And that kind of coincided as one of the reasons why this is happening with the fact that for a very long time, if you had a lot of money and you wanted to borrow more money, it was basically free to do so. So this is a graph of the interest rates of the Federal Reserve in the US. And you can in a way see that the platform era that started around 2007, some people say, kind of coincides with when interest rates were super low. So there was a lot of money to go around to do all the subsidizing. And then as interest rates go up, money becomes more expensive. You have to stop subsidizing, you have to start asking for more money for everything you do, and basically platforms become worse for people. So then the question becomes, what if the role of a platform was not to extract rents from people and businesses that are using it, but instead to just connect them in the different ways they want? For that to happen, though, platforms have to become much less powerful intermediaries than they are now. So they can no longer change the network to their own advantage. So now, after having set out this economic context of platforms, we can now return to one of these old ideas for the internet. So what if platforms were not very powerful, because there would be many smaller ones that fulfill the role of one platform now? What if instead of one Facebook, we had 10,000 smaller Facebooks that could set their own rules, have their own features, so that if you don't like the advertisement on one, you could move to the other. If you don't want to be on a corporate social network, you can join one that's done by your local association. If you're on one that is disappearing for whatever reason, you can move your followers elsewhere. All of this without losing your existing connections. Before we had platforms, we had protocols, and perhaps after platforms, we should have protocols once again. So one place where this experiment is happening of protocols over platforms is in a social network called the Fediverse. Others, they call it the Federated Social Web, but both names point to the fact that it works around online federation, a system where multiple providers make up a communications network and share the power as they do so. Online federation is the technology of yesterday's internet. This is a map of different social media platforms with different kind of federation technologies that connect them. The first internet systems were built around this way of working. The email system, for example, is such an example. And one of the reasons why email didn't yet go the same way as other platforms is really because it isn't a platform. It is a set of protocols. Microsoft and Google, of course, control the majority of email and are trying really hard to turn it into a platform, but so far they haven't managed. Which is one of the reasons why Kris, when he needs to abandon Twitter, can still point to his followers to his newsletter as a kind of technology that persisted, that was there before the platform era and will be there probably long after. So the Fediverse is an attempt to build a different internet where the platforms that are part of it are less powerful and more useful. And as I said, the idea of the Fediverse is to build it up of multiple providers. So to give some example, how you would visualize such a thing, on the right you could imagine a network diagram of something like a Twitter, where everyone is part of the same Twitter, and on the left you could imagine the diagram within the Fediverse, where people join different smaller clusters that together form their own network. So each of these providers is run by a distinct entity. It could be an association, a social network cooperative, an individual volunteer, or even a company. They each run a small part of the network and each needs the others to be useful. However, at the same time, each of them can also decide what their part of the network is about, how things are done, what things should look like, or how money is made. These providers can be very big, home to millions, or very small, home to a single individual. And if they disagree with each other on policies, they can also cut the connections between themselves. And if people want to switch from one to the other, they can. Because it is technology of yesterday's internet, we to a very large degree already know how we can build these systems. It's a one advantage. We don't need new technologies for this. No blockchains, no cryptocurrencies are necessary. But at the same time, there are still many things that we need to find out. Large platforms, before they increasingly became bad, as I mentioned before, did some things very well, and also fixed some real problems that we had in the internet before the platforms. They made it easy to find people and things that people wanted to find. They are good at being a trusted intermediary between, for example, a buyer and a seller. If you are on Facebook Marketplace, you don't need to doubt whether Facebook Marketplace itself will directly scam you. They allow for different ways of making money online. They allow you to pay the people that you actually want to pay online. The Fediverse, as it stands now, is not yet good at these things, but it's also not sure whether it will ever be. But that's also only because few people are dedicated to working on these problems at this moment. And I think with more experimentation, more money, and more attention is a good way of finding out. So what happens when instead of recommendation algorithms, we can rely again on other people curating cool stuff? So if you're interested in this kind of thing, where do you focus your experimentation, your money, and your attention? The largest, most well-known Fediverse platform is called Mastodon, which is like Twitter in terms of features. So it's made for short messages. The microblog, where you can just share the interesting link and not have to be an actual writer. That's the most famous one, and it's also the one that got people excited about these ideas again. Even WordPress, the good old blogging software, now supports becoming part of this Fediverse, and in that sense, it has potential to become the next generation RSS, where within one platform, people can follow and interact with your blog. from other Fediverse applications, because RSS was only about reading, but not about commenting, for example. So the federated open web is the way forward, or at least an important threat to the big platforms, which we can gather from the fact that Facebook has shown interest in it historically. So this is leaked from court proceedings, where already in 2012 they were never afraid of another large social media. What they were afraid of is all the smaller ones. But also Facebook's parent company is now launching a tool which will connect to this Fediverse. I don't think it's overall a positive development, but it shows how the model is something the big platforms are forced to consider. So large news organizations, governmental agencies, cultural institutions, scientists, writers are all already trying it out, either by becoming their own provider or by joining another provider. For each person that tries it out and adds their value to the network becomes more valuable. You are probably not on it because your friends are not on it, but your friends are not on it because you are not on it. So how do we break this circle? I don't know, but I think it's important to try. And at the very least, one can realize that one can be on, let's say, Instagram as well as on these other platforms at the same time, and be more mindful of where literally you're adding value to the platform. So to conclude, to be clear, I don't talk about these Fediverse platforms because I think they're perfect or they're the solution, because they are a way to concretely try and work on a different internet for tomorrow. It's one of the few ways that we currently have to try something else, or to at least to be aware of something else before inevitably the platform that you're currently depending on will also go to shit. This is my contribution. I explicitly didn't talk that much about specific platforms because there's people from the local Barcelona Fediverse community that have weekly meetups. So if you're interested in these kind of ideas, I can really recommend going to one of these meetups. And if you want to support the work that Kris and me are doing on Low-Tech Magazine or hosting these kinds of evenings, please become a member of the Low-Tech Magazine Patreon or buy one of the books. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me on historic protocols and the protocol of tomorrow. So thank you. And now to Tim.
It's really nice. Okay, I'm going to explain a little bit what I do in my work, and then I will speak about the 128 kilobyte challenge, which is amazing, so stay tuned. I'm Tim. I tell you a little bit about me, okay? I teach creative coding, like programming for artists, designers. I do this in many different contexts, like workshops, online, offline, but my main job is to build an e-learning platform for creative coding on my website, timrodenbröker.de. So I teach mostly in the realms of graphic design, so people that are actually anyway connected with design, visual design, UI, UX, that kind of stuff. So I think it's super interesting to question technology, and through programming, we actually get kind of a glimpse into how the things work that we use on a daily basis, right? And I think this is super interesting and motivates me a lot. I really burn for this, and it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. So I got this kind of motto that I use internally for myself, which is actually demystify technology. So to show what it actually consists of, right? So we are actually bombarded with marketing messages. I don't know if you saw these recent AI, Sora, Gemini ads that try to sell us like the super high-tech stuff. It's, we are actually very influenced, I think, also by the positive vibes that these companies try to plant into our heads. And I think demystify technology is a nice way of putting what I try with my teaching in creative coding. Yeah, we have a problem because programming is something, or it changed a lot in the last years, to be honest. But actually, programming has ever been something like that, what the nerds does, and now everything goes no code, and we don't have to think about what we are actually doing there anymore, which is a big problem, I think. So, yeah, making programming cool is something I find super interesting. Like, how can we make it interesting for people that actually just would like to use something that is no code, for example? And I love to work with limitations. That's actually something I'm writing about this right now. And limitations are really powerful also as a creative, let's say, framework, right? Okay, I'm not going too deep into this. So this is the programming language I teach. It's called processing. It's made for artists and designers. And yeah, it's fun. It's quite easy. It's very close to how visually oriented people think, and it's a beautiful tool to teach, also to create quite amazing artworks, whatever kind of tools. Super nice. So it started offline. These are some recent photos, but I just wanted to illustrate what I did. I started, I think 2018 was my first teaching assignment. Since then I actually did a lot of stuff because there was like there were many people asking for this. I gave lots of talks sometimes on big stages. I was quite different in this time, to be honest. Like I started to think completely different about what I'm doing today. This, for example, was a design conference, and I was actually like praising in a way that everybody should learn to code now, which is wrong. But yeah, I learned a lot about myself and also about my confirmation bias I was in. Anyway, this was my second class in Germany, design and university. This is a workshop I did with my friend Martin Lorenz here at Pau in Barcelona lately. But actually, well, when COVID happened, something really, really strange actually, happened. So all the universities were actually forced to do everything online. And I thought, when everything is going digital, can't I build my own online school? Because I was super frustrated by the super rigid and very very conservative design academies in Germany. So, and I was thinking like, how could it look like? So the thing is that when you build an online school, you have one thing is amazing, you can reach way more people, right? So when I teach in a class in Germany, in a small city, and it's a graphic design course, like there are maybe 5 people that really interest what I'm doing, but 20 who think, I don't have to do this. It's not really important. So if you think it globally as an internet platform, you can actually reach everyone who wants to learn this. And this is amazing, I think. So I did workshops online at that time, but it's also crap, to be honest. I don't know. I learned a lot. Online has big limitations, and yeah, but exactly, I already said this. Like, I wanted to reach people beyond the dusty German design programs. If that worked, I will more explain you now exactly how my platform architecture looks like and how it grew over the last years, okay? So, first of all, I have this website. It's my fortress, I would say, like, because there's all my content. I was always aware of this problem that when you have social media and put everything there, like, it's going to be lost, it's going to be gone. Because I used Tumblr in the beginning, and it was very, it was my sketchbook for some time, and then I think Yahoo bought Tumblr, and it was just disappearing and very crappy. And so I just built this website with WordPress. That's it. And there I have my online courses I offer, which are actually only video courses, as you know them from LinkedIn Learning or Domestika. It's a terrible company, by the way, but yeah. So I hosted all this stuff on my own website. I always tried to build a platform and not just, I never made a course for any other platform, which paid out very, very well. I've got a blog. I interview many amazing people because this platform also got known at some point. And well, I do this now since I think 5 years. And yeah, I do interviews. I also write. So my new blog is called downgrade.timrodenbröker.de, which is actually about like limitations. And now I also create a platform that I want to present you in a moment called the 128 kilobyte challenge. Yes, everything is working with Patreon. Without Patreon, well, I've got mixed feelings. Patreon made it possible that I built this. I make my whole living out of it. I even can sometimes hire freelancers to work for me, which is amazing. So sometimes I teach, sometimes I do some freelance work, but I don't have to do this. I have the whole time, the whole day to work on my teaching and on my ideas, which is absolutely fantastic. At the same time, like, this is also an enshittified platform because Patreon is going through a weird phase with a lot of venture capital, and yeah, it's a disaster. But anyway, it works. Social media. Yeah, I always take this as my orientation to make sure I'm not getting swept away by messages. So I have a community on Discord, like a Discord server, and also have some other community tools, but mostly it's Discord. I keep myself out of the bottleneck by like having people there that are very helpful and help also the beginners. So I create courses. The courses go to the person that does the course. The person communicates with the community, and I also communicate with the community, but the people never communicate with me. That makes sure I'm not the bottleneck and I have enough time to create my stuff. So there's this beautiful Discord server. I don't know why they didn't send any invoices to me, because it's free and it works super well, to be honest. It's amazing. Probably at some point they will also enshittify, but yeah, at the moment it's really good. So there are, I think, 1,000 people or something. I never checked this number exactly, but some time ago it was 1,000, and yeah. I used Tumblr many years ago. Yeah, it's dead actually, but it's like the first stuff I did in my creative coding experiments are visible on Tumblr. So I'm actually married to Instagram. So this is a big deal. Like when Tumblr was dying, I was using Instagram when it was still a photo platform to post my experiments there, because that's what I do. I experiment a lot and try out new things and share my ideas. But at the, in the last years, just Instagram became such a disaster with the reels, and when I open the application, I got like puppies and stuff I just don't want to see. I like puppies, but not those. Yeah, so actually it's also pretty much locked in. I'm happy because the important ideas also can be found on my blog. This is very important. Well, before I want to ask you, who of you uses Instagram on a daily basis? Just raise your hands, please. Okay, wow. Okay, can you tell me about how much time you use Instagram in a day? And I know it's the double when you say this, I know this. 10 minutes? And it works for you? Ah, who uses it more than 10 minutes? And look, everybody. Me too. Okay, let's say you use Instagram for an hour, and this is realistic because many people use Instagram for an hour a day. Let's check how many data is going through Instagram when we just scroll on desktop, which is important, by the way, with open developer tools, because I'm very sure that they are checking if we are actually spying on the website, right? If we open developer tools, you get way more static content. I made a test, I don't have any proofs for that, but I see that it's more static, less video. Let's see what happens here. So there, it's very small actually, but I'm just scrolling down my feed, and I think here's the number. But after 1 minute of scrolling, I have 300 megabytes going through the line. That means when we use Instagram for 1 hour, you can imagine this is a lot of data, right? This is a lot of data just for this addictive shit. And I think this is a disaster. And I feel also guilty a bit because I'm the one who puts content to Instagram, right? I'm the one who just makes things that people watch, and some people watch my videos. It's a problem, I think. So I feel locked in a way. Well, and I was, yeah, this is what I said. And so I was just thinking and dreaming up something that could maybe potentially rescue me. It's just a utopia. It's not there yet, but I wanted to show you what I built, and I think it's really interesting. It's actually called the 128 kilobyte challenge. And these were the questions that I was just asking myself. How could a dedicated social network for a creative coding community look like? What would be a minimal viable product? I don't know if you know this term, but it's like just a minimum version of this thing. And what if an animated post size would be limited to 128 kilobyte? That's not much, I tell you. It's really, really just a little bit. And how does this limitation influence the identity of the platform? This maybe is interesting for those who are into graphic design, because this is a term like the identity. What kind of identity does this platform get through this limitation? I was used to limitations because Tumblr restricted me to use 2 megabytes of GIFs, which was really, really not a lot, right? So 2 megabytes for a post is just a little bit. It's really difficult to stay in that range. So, but 128 kilobyte it's crazy. Like it's I made this emoji to make you feel how I feel about this. When I create these projects, I often work with a magic triangle. triangle. This is a creativity technique I developed when I was a bachelor student, just on a sheet of paper. And it's all about setting 3 restrictions, 3 limitations to create a self-initiated project. So the framework here is like I want the people to post GIFs with maximum 128 frames, maximum 128 colors. I want them to use processing or P5.js, which are creative coding languages, and the rest is up to them. So this is a blown up GIF with 36 kilobyte, which is quite good. The thing is, everything became super blurred because these 128 pixels is super, super, super small, right? So, but I found a CSS function that actually makes it sharp. I don't know if you see the difference, but you know, this is blurry and looks broken, but as soon as you make it sharp, it becomes more interesting, like it becomes more like a conceptual thing. And that's something that, yeah, that I found super interesting. These are already submissions by friends who were invited to, like from the creative coding community to post something. And I forgot to put the names there. Oh my goodness, this is bad. Sorry. But yeah, this is how it could look like, right? These are like objects to think with, right? These are objects to work with as creative coders. Really nice. It's actually very connected. This idea is very connected to the demo scene. Has anybody heard of this? So the demo scene was about creating with like super small programs that create video graphics for computer games, like super low fidelity in the 90s. Like, yeah. It's a whole art community. It's a big thing. This is how it looks. This is the 128 kilobyte challenge. So it's a feed with GIFs. It is a link. Like there's a lot of link love going on here. So I'm linking the people that just submitted something. And there's something like a manual, like how it works, so people can learn how they can submit, how they can participate. These are the rules. And at the moment, I do it with Google Forms, which is pretty much a hack. So they just can upload a GIF, which is also nice because I can make sure that the quality of the submission stays in a specific level. So they don't have the power to submit it themselves. There's still like a curational process going on. I'm thinking of asking some of my friends and peers to help me with this, like to also build this kind of firewall, because I was getting a lot of crap already in the last days since I promoted this. And we were thinking like, wow, because he makes lots of these high-tech VR experiences, web XR and stuff. So he's very good in WebGL. And we're thinking like, what if we create a gallery with dimensions of 128 times 128 voxels that people could walk through in the internet browser, where we could hang these GIFs and make an interactive, super lo-fi exhibition. I don't know if that's a good idea, but I just put this video inside the presentation as well. And yeah, exactly. So imagine like even also you go to the exhibition and you will be dropped out in 128 seconds, which would be nice. That's it. Gracias. And this is my website. Thanks.
Questions? Preguntas?
Hey, so yeah, my question is directed at you or you, I guess. So I completely agree with like your analysis, and but I do also want to ask if this, especially when we talk about like federated platforms, there seems to be like a challenge of usability for non-technical users, which is pretty hard to overcome. And I'm on Mastodon, but like when I talk to people of why they should be on Mastodon, they mostly don't care. Maybe this is because platforms have been good to users, and things will change and they will start caring. But I think it's also because generally a lot of people don't want to think about whether a platform is federated or not. Like it might not be their highest priority. So I do wonder, yeah, why doesn't everybody host their own, I don't know, website at home on their hardware that they own with a solar panel? Why does everybody just go
and open a website on WordPress because it's easier. So
Your own static website and solar power is not that easy.
exactly.
So that's a bit the problem that also with the solar power website, that we build something that many people like and want to build themselves, but it's actually not easy to build. And that, I think you're right, it's a problem. Like, you cannot expect something to go mainstream if you have to learn to code before. And that's also why, like, yeah, Roel talked a lot about Mastodon, but I'm not on Mastodon, but because for me it's too complicated. And I could, of course, if I have spent time on it, I could manage, but I'm not willing to do that. And so, like, the the older blog that I had on Typepad, I've used Typepad for like 15 years, and I found it amazing because it was even simpler than WordPress in the sense that you didn't have to look for a host. It was all in one. And it's amazing to have such an accessible platform. Like, really, everyone could make their own website. And if we want to see like alternative social networks or sustainable blogging breakthrough, then we need a solution like this. And we were surprised after launching the solar power website that nobody seemed to want it. Like there's not a kind of, you could think of a WordPress-like system to build sustainable static websites, but nobody seems to really make work of that. But yeah, Roel will have more to say about this.
Yeah, I think it's a super good question that you bring in, the whole idea of usability and that nobody wants federation as a thing in itself, and I completely agree with that. But we want these other properties from platforms, right? We want to have the kind of independence that the rules of the game don't change under your feet while you use them, etc. And few ways that we have are regulation, and there's things coming, etc. But at the same time, it's also a lot of the issues with these other platforms are also issues of a lack of investment and a lack of different perspectives on these issues. So yeah, I agree that it's in as it currently is. It's not perfect. I'm also definitely not saying it's a solution, but it's one of the few ways we have to very concretely kind of try to build
But
other types of systems.
there's also another problem, and that's what Tim asked, like, who's on Instagram? I mean, we are dealing with addicts. So many people are addicted, and it's like, imagine you tell the heroin addicts, like, hey, it's bad for you, we're gonna give you methadone. Well, good luck with that. You're gonna have to, it's a bit like yeah, Mastodon is like methadone for Instagram addicts. So it's never attractive as an addict to go to a kind of another drug that is less dangerous and will kind of save you in the long term. So yes, please. No, go ahead. I said what I want.
So I think what is very important, we have to recultivate this whole thing, right? I mean, the problem is that we faced things like programming. Oh my goodness, like we are traumatized by bad programming teachers from school and so on. And I think this is a very big problem. Like, I think we should start educating people that it's not that different to build a static website, for example. I think everybody can learn this. It's a one-page tutorial. Learning a little bit of Markdown is so liberating. And I think this is something I try to tackle in my teaching, like cultivating programming in a way that it's fun, that it's joy, that it's connecting, it's a community where people help each other and so on. And this is where I would say that would be a very nice step. And I personally love websites. I think blogs and websites are beautiful. I would even prefer having more like this blogoverse than different social media platforms, maybe. Wow, that was a bold statement, right?
Yeah, but actually what Tim says, like, there's two ways to solve it. So either you make platforms so that every idiot can make a sustainable website, or you kind of learn people how to code. It's also what we had, the discussion we had in the team for the solar powered website, because of course, I mean, I had a whole team who made a fantastic website, but then I have to manage it, and it was way easier to manage my old TypePad website. And then every time I have to change something now, I have to call someone, hey Roel, or hey Marie, could you change this? And I could do everything myself. So there's two ways to look at the problem. Like either we build very accessible tools, or we all get more knowledgeable, we get to learn how computers work and how coding works. And the long term, that's maybe a better idea than building accessible tool. Or we can do both. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, if we start very early, like oh yeah, sure. I like if we start educating people in coding very, very early, like building into, like making it an elementary cultural technique, like reading, writing, and math. That would be amazing. Like putting this into the curriculum in the elementary school, maybe even like the basics. I think that would be super nice. Yeah.
Mark Mullen from Rorschach. My question is that, I mean, there's clearly something happening that people are coming at from different directions, from open source, or from lowering screen time, or from anti-capitalism or anti-venture capital models of finance for sort of self-reliance and learning to code, but it's all arriving at more or less the same thing. And enshittification refers to the sort of corporate, mostly American sort of walled gardens that are all becoming walled deathscapes. What's the word or the term for this movement? This thing that you're all talking about? How do you, what is it that we are moving towards? De-enshittification? Is that, or de-shittification? I mean, that's not, it's not that graceful, but is there?
I don't think it's one movement. I mean, there are many of the same kind of analyses, but there's obviously, it's federated. That's what I would say. No, I definitely don't think it's one movement, but I think one of the things that you see now, and why we wanted to bring this specific perspective of also people that like have a business approach, it is also plural. So, for example, now there's a lot of regulation from the EU coming, and from the US as well, like antitrust law. So that's one way of addressing this issue. So the other way is educating, your friends and family around you. The other way is prototyping new platforms. So I don't think there's one way out, but I think there's very many different kind of groups of people that are suffering the negative effects of this kind of this extreme commercialization of the platforms we've come to rely on and that are part of our lives.
Don't have so much a question, just one thing. Yeah, maybe it is a question. Like going back in time to the first internet, there's one thing that is the peer-to-peer sharing, the torrents that started there. I think that's one thing that proves that users will completely jump on something if it's actually a solution for whatever it is. And if you say now, Netflix is going more and more hard, that then Disney Plus also is increasing their stuff, and then people do not get to their movies anymore, probably torrents will go sky high again. So this peer-to-peer network, I think that we can go back to these ones if we go to the past.
I also would like to put one thing out there. Like, there's something interesting that I discovered when I repaired these computers. I don't know, do you think you can repair a computer if it's broken? Is anybody who is able to do that? Raise your hands. Many people seem not to know, but there's a beautiful platform out there. It's called iFixit. So iFixit is sharing tutorials, and it makes it super, super easy. They explain everything in detail. Like if you want to change the battery, no problem. Like it explains it. They even like bash the company, say, wow, they took glue to make us not open this case, right? So they're putting a lot of pressure onto the companies as well. And I think Apple even implemented the law, like I think, how is it called? The right to repair. So they are slowly implementing a store, as far as I understood it, where they sell parts, right? Because it's coming from the bottom, right? Because people started to repair the computers, and I think we all can do it. I'm very sure it's not that difficult. So yeah.
If you have to build your own website, you have to repair your own computer, you have to do everything yourself, then you don't have time to work anymore.
But your friends.
Yeah.
Friends can help you.
Judas' perspective on the problem?
No, I'm just. I mean, this is the reason I think why it doesn't happen. It's all very convenient what the platforms have to offer, for example, and like, okay, you can buy an old ThinkPad, which I did, and you repair it, but it's gonna cost you time, and if you're short on time, then you kind of will, and you're not short on money, then you just buy a new Apple laptop. And it's the same with. Or building your own website, or just jumping onto a platform like this guy on Twitter. Yeah, it's easy. You just start posting something and you don't have to invest any time. So it's convenience who always, not only the internet, but with everything, it's convenience that makes us go into the wrong direction. And that, of course, hangs together with a lot of more systemic issues, like that we all have to work very hard to pay the rent. And because, yeah, that's another whole different topic. But
If I can, as you mentioned, convenience get us to the wrong direction as far as the opportunity is in the wrong direction. So if we have a service that goes in the right direction, well designed, so the convenience is in that direction.
yeah,
I can just imagine something like this that is just plug and play website, solar website that is plug and play and costs less than to have a WordPress somewhere. Probably people will switch towards there. If we are offering something cooler, people are moving. If we are offering something that imply more effort from the user, and this is not gonna change at all. Only geeks will go in that direction, keep pushing. Like, we need to do that in the old style, but nobody's gonna do that if it's not convenient. That's my point of view.
I don't agree very much, because I think this is a paradigm, and this is also a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we think we cannot do it, and this is actually common sense, I think, we will not be able to do it. But if we start research here, especially hosting websites and this kind of stuff. So yeah.
I would like to have an example where people actually struggle more and everybody moved towards more struggle and better solution. I don't see like the convenience of modifying the brain of millions of people towards something that's a deterrent for them. That's my point of view.
Thank you. Actually, I don't have a question. I would just comment on something. When you asked us if we can repair our computers, it reminded me of my grandfather, who was really suffering because of the digitalization, because he was like a mechanic and he could repair almost everything. But then there came the digital watch, and like he said, oh no, I can't do that. And then like making like a bogen. So now we are with the digitalization, we have the impression it's very convenient, and that's also the reason why we don't do what you guys are doing. But I think we are now coming from an era of abundance to an era of where this abundance is disappearing, as we see with the energy crisis. Also, the question of the raw materials that we need now for the transitions, also digital transition. And I think this is my hope, because when we are in need, and this is also the generation of my grandfather or our grandfathers that knew a lot of crisis, war, and there were not a lot of material. So people get very creative and invent and substitute. So I think you are like the pioneers in that way, I would say, for a new era.
Thanks. Well, when the war comes.
Hopefully not.
when there's not enough material, or there's like, you know, people get creative, and they always find ways, and suddenly things become mainstream that before weren't.
Yeah, and goes the other way around. If we're in a time of abundance, we get less and less.
Exactly.
Saying, picking up from where you left off, I think if we pull the thread, it goes back to the growth myth and etc. I think the economy must be always growing and etc. And I think one thing that I connect with is also the lock-in effect. I don't think that happens only in platforms. I think that also happens in terms of hardware, for example. If you're using, let's say, Android, or if you're using PC, like all the suite is made to get you trapped within, like in terms of compatibility. Like they don't make it exactly easier for you to switch or to open up to communicate with other interfaces, right? Like in terms of
And there is an idea I want to share, because I had a conversation about this today with a friend, and I think that's why when we speak on stages like this, it's super important that we don't are like the radicals that do it the right way and the other people don't do it the right way, right? This creates a big contradiction. Like it actually splits the people from these ideas. It disconnects them. And yeah, this is not absolutely not related to your thing that you said, right? Sorry. Just realize this.
No, what I wanted to say is that there are a few interesting initiatives going on. I think it's pretty old by now. I think it happened already a couple of years ago. Like a phone that was like, it was part of the design process that you could repair and upgrade the phone parts as you wanted. So you could remove the camera, you could remove the memory, and it was almost like a Lego type of phone. So I guess it goes back to the, like, you need to think of these things within the design process. But I guess most companies don't have any interest in doing that for the user, right? Like, again, lock-in effect.
But also, as people who are, let's say, use social media and have a lot of following, they can, of course, make a big difference, because we are living also in a time when individuals have a lot of power. Like we can grow with our ideas, we can get very big inside of the platforms, and then start to evangelize for the things that we find right. And this is also something that we should not underestimate. I think it really makes a lot of sense to speak up and share these opinions and perspectives, right?
Definitely.